Now I know you guys are all excited for the Pacific in Battlefield 5, and I'm with you on that. I think the game is in need of a desperate content update, and whilst we will get a few more maps between now and the release of the Pacific, it's always nice to wait for that big content drop, almost like one of the DLCs that we used to get in Battlefield 3, 4 and 1. Now of course DICE haven't released a whole lot of information with this Pacific update, so you've really got to be looking at people such as Temporal, who are the sort of guys that will data mine and then upload what they've found to Reddit and Twitter. Now interestingly, Temporal has just dropped a really nice Reddit post that's looking at the US and Japanese weapons for the Pacific, community missions, plus some short notes on the Soviets and the Chapter 4 weekly rewards. Now the interesting thing about this post is that it goes into some detail with some weapons that I was really hoping would actually come to the game, and although this isn't a confirmation, of course this stuff is in the game files but it might not be in the game. As is the case with many things that are data mined, you can be sure that some of it probably will be, and therefore it is good to get excited about it. So starting off with the weapons, and you'll be familiar with a few of these if you've ever played some other World War II games with the Pacific involved. The M3 SMG, otherwise known as the grease gun. The M3 is an American .45 caliber machine gun adopted for the US Army service on the 12th of December 1942. And it's a favourite of mine. I remember playing it back in one of the Call of Duties, I believe it was World at War. Just a really fun gun, and it really brings back some of that World War II experience, and if you've watched the Hollywood movies, they've always got this gun in there. It's iconic, and it was really, really popular. The M3 was chambered for the same .45 ACP round fired by the Thompson submachine gun, but was cheaper to produce and lighter, although, contrary to popular belief, it was actually less accurate. This myth stems from the US Army training film portraying the M3 as more accurate than its counterparts. The M3 was commonly referred to as the grease gun, or simply the greaser, owing its visual similarity to the mechanic's tool. And these bits of information have been uploaded by Temporal as well. You can find the Reddit post down below if you want to do a bit of reading into these weapons. Next up, we've got the Type 100 SMG. The Type 100 was a Japanese submachine gun used during the Second World War, and the only submachine gun produced by Japan in any quantity. It was made in two basic variants referred to by the Americans and British observers as the Type 100/40 and the Type 100/44, the latter also known as the Type 100 Simplified. A small number of the earlier versions were converted into using a folding stock, sometimes referred to by the Allies as the Type 100 Navy, which was made for parachutists. Will we see variations like that in Battlefield 5? I really hope we do. The more weapons and the more variants, the better. The Type 99, now this is a weapon that is iconic. Just take a look at it, you probably already know what it looks like if you've played any of the old Battlefield World War II games, or indeed Call of Duty, because this gun was in the campaign and should have been because it's so iconic. The title Type 99 doesn't really give away if we're talking about the LMG or the bolt-action rifle, however, so at least one of them will arrive with the Pacific Theatre. I think the LMG will arrive. This is the picture in the background of the LMG. I love the look of the thing, it's so iconic, and I remember using it in Call of Duty World at War during the campaign a lot, and it was just such a great sounding weapon, and really quite fun when you found it and picked it up. Now the Type 99 LMG was a light machine gun used by the Imperial Japanese Army in the Second World War, so of course it's the right time period. We might see this in the game, but as Temporal alluded to, there's also the Type 99 rifle Arisaka, or Type 99 short rifle, and this was a bolt-action rifle of the Arisaka design, used by the Imperial Japanese Army during the Second World War. We could see this because maybe they'd use something from Battlefield 1 and port it over. You could use the same sound files. I'm not really too sure how that works, but I'm sure it would be easier to use something that has been in a previous game instead of having to redesign it all. I'm not too sure, but maybe if we're lucky, we'll see both. As for the vehicles of Chapter 5, we've been through these before, but I'll go over them again for anyone that missed them in a previous video. We've got the M4A3 Sherman, that is a tank from the US, and then the Imperial Army will get the Type 97 CHI-HA and the Type 3 CHI-NU. Pictures of these can be seen in the background. As for passenger vehicles, we'll see the Jeep Ford GPW and an officer car, again for the US, and then the Imperial Army will get the Kurgan, I believe it's pronounced, Type 95, again another little passenger vehicle. When it comes to the air, now this is interesting, it seems like we'll only be getting one plane for each team so far. Maybe they'll add in more, but we get the Mitsubishi A6M0, the iconic Zero for the Imperial Army, and then the F4U Corsair for the USA. I really want to fly that thing. It looks so cool. There are so many historical pictures of it, and I'm hoping that vehicle customization will come along at the same time, meaning that we can customize, finally, the vehicles in Battlefield 5. But that's not all. There are a few more amphibious vehicles coming along. For the US, we've got some tracked landing vehicles, and for the Imperial Army, we've got the Type 2 KAMI. This looks pretty wacky, but surely it'll just be a simple amphibious tracked vehicle for transporting people from A to B, and of course causing damage with that turret on the top. Finally, we have the LCVP or Higgins boat, iconic for certain maps, I'm sure, with some landings onto the beaches, and then one that will be shared between the Japanese and the US. A torpedo boat looks pretty cool. Maybe we'll have some naval gameplay after all. Now, for those interested in update 4.2, that's the recent patch that we've had to Battlefield 5. I know you're probably going to be fairly disappointed, or if you've listened to any of the other content creators or even been on Reddit or Twitter to look at a roundup of the patch notes, you'll probably have seen that they're quite light. There's not a whole lot of stuff in there, and they've really been focusing on getting rid of some of the bugs, namely the Invisible Soldier bug that has been plaguing the game for the last month or so. Now, I'm not going to go and say that this patch is amazing, neither am I going to say that it's really not what we needed. All I will say is it's a step in the right direction, albeit a very small one. We need a big patch for Battlefield and a selection of patches that are going to consistently make this game better. And this update 4.2 does that. Is it enough? I don't think so. There's a long way to go, but as it's a positive patch, that's a good thing, and as long as we get more of these, the game will become better over time, which is all I ask for. Now, the patch notes aren't massive, and the next major update is going to be patch 4.4, which is scheduled to release at the end of August. That's another month, and that is quite some time to wait, really, before we get a major patch bringing some proper fixes to the game. However, there will be a small update out early next week to enable Marita, a map that I'm super excited for. I've played it, I've tested it, it's great fun. There's a bit of a balance issue, but hopefully DICE have addressed that. As for the actual map design, layout and the way it looks, it's more of a close quarters map, which I really enjoy. Plus, it looks fantastic, and it's something a little bit different, with some different buildings and just something different overall, and I think we've all been waiting for something like that to come to the game. As for the patch notes for 4.2, well, DICE have reduced the recoil and increased the muzzle velocity for the P08 carbine, so it'll be better, more effective. Maybe if that's a weapon you enjoy using, or haven't because it's not so good, this will be a good update for you. And kills in Firestorm are now awarded if the enemy player disconnects during the down state. Now that's new stuff, just 2 things, not a whole lot. As I said, it's quite a light patch. As for things that have been changed and fixed, well, extreme instances of invisible soldiers has apparently been sorted. Westy said that his game is running much better, and also the invisible soldiers are not to be seen, but being a bit of a meme, you can't see them anyway, so how would he know? But I think really the invisible soldiers have been sorted for the most part. Hopefully you're not coming across them. If you are, as DICE said, they've targeted fixing them. They're not certain if they're gone for good. Specializations are now able to be reset on the P08 carbine, a small fix, and the game will no longer stutter when killing enemies with tanks. I think a lot of you tankers out there will really like that one. They've removed an unintended suppression effect that was applying to infantry soldiers when a tank fires its main cannon, and the screen will no longer turn black when firing stationary cannons. Again, 2 nice little fixes. The Arras sights on the Lewis gun now display correctly when using extended mags, and the rate of fire for the Mark 6 revolver has been reduced to 180 RPM from 200. A nice nerf because the revolver was a lot better than other sidearms, but I've preferred to have seen the other sidearms brought up to the level of the revolver, making them useful, as opposed to still having a revolver that will be the best sidearm in the game for the most part. The correct crosshair now shows on the Mosquito FB Mark 6 on all loadouts, and the company will now display the correct amount of bombs for the Ju-88. Players trying to spawn into airplanes should no longer get stuck on the deploy screen again, a nice little fix. Now I will say that these fixes have probably been in the game or ready to upload into the game for months. DICE have a weird update schedule, so if something's fixed today, you won't see it in the game for another 4 weeks to 6 weeks at the minimum. Which is pretty crazy, but there we go. It's nice that these fixes are in the game. There are a few other things being worked on for 4.4. This isn't in 4.2, but it's coming at the end of August, as I said. The increased max rank to 500, updates to Fortress mode, some new weapons, some fixes to desync hitboxes, and then you have the new maps, Lofoten Islands and Province. In addition to that, you have targets on performance and stability across all platforms, which is welcome on Battlefield because we've really needed that. The game doesn't run so well. Now, what did Reddit think of this patch? They weren't very impressed. Somebody even said, am I blind? Or where are the full patch notes? Because they are so light, there's really nothing there to see. And in addition to that, Al Sundan still isn't in the game for Conquest, which is crazy considering we've been wanting that one, or promised it, since June. I've attached a few screenshots of what people are saying on Reddit for you guys to have a little look at. Now hopefully you're looking forward to the Pacific Chapter 5, I certainly am. I can't wait for that thing to turn up because we've been waiting for a big DLC drop for a long time. Obviously it's not DLC, it's a live service, but it's the same sort of thing, a big content drop that will up the amount of stuff that we have in game. And whilst we are being drip fed content week by week or month by month, I do feel as if we're lacking some maps, maybe some more factions in the game, and in comparison to other Battlefield games, BF5 is still lagging behind. So Chapter 5 is a big deal, and I can't wait for it to come along. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game and the patch. Do you think it's a nice little update, or are you still looking forward to the Pacific and the stuff that I showed you earlier in the video? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.